It's all dirty.
Oh, yeah.
Try. Pencil, ink, pencil lead or something, huh? So dirty. I know.
Leave it pretty dry.
Work? No. It's very. Hand sanitizer.
Okay, 6 o'clock.
Okay, everybody, good evening. Welcome to today's City Council study session, this Wednesday, September 2nd, 2026. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. So, Madam Clerk, would you initiate roll call?
Counselor Chavez.
Here.
Counselor Zassetti.
Here.
Counselor Vasquez.
Here.
Counselor Dolan.
Here.
Counselor Gavon did ask for an excused absence. Is there any objection?
No objection.
No objection.
Okay, we'll excuse him. Deputy Mayor will probably be here, and Mayor.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay. So we have a couple of discussion items on the agenda today. A is a presentation from Yakima County Young Women's Christian Association, also known as YWCA. We don't believe the person is in the room with us yet. So if y'all are okay with it, we can move on to item B, which is well number 6, improvement in safety. Oh, there they are. Oh, did, yeah, are you ready to do your presentation? You're first up on the agenda. Okay, sounds good. Lupita?
And this is Sherry, our CEO of the YWCA.
Nice to meet all of you.
And nice to meet you, Sherry and Lupita. Okay, well, the floor is yours.
Great.
Oh, my gosh.
Start.
It's okay.
Okay, so I do have some small little packs. Is that okay to pass out to the council? Yeah, that's just some information. Thank you, Sunnyside City Council and Mayor. It's nice to meet you guys. So again, my name's Lupita. I'm the Donor Engagement Director at YWCA Yakima. And we thought that it would be important to go around the valley and meet the different councils and leaders in our valley to talk about the services that YWCA Yakima does. And so I sent in just a small presentation, and if you haven't heard, we are expanding. We are a domestic violence shelter and have domestic violence services. And we serve the whole county, so that means Sunnyside as well. And in the month of June, we pulled some numbers from a few different cities, Sunnyside being one, to see what do the domestic violence rates look like here. And so we, one, we wanted to get to know the leaders in our valley. And two, we wanted to share with you who we are, what we do. We know that domestic violence lives in all communities. In 2025, we served 19,000 clients for all different kinds of services at YWCA Yakima. So, so I sent in a little presentation, and I wanted to share with you guys that one, we are a domestic violence shelter and we have lots of different services. We serve the whole county, like I mentioned, and we have many wraparound services. So in that packet that I shared is a RAC card, and that RAC card has many services listed on there, our shelter, our 24/7 crisis line, and a few other things. Now, that's just a small list. We have many services that we have not listed on there. And really, we try to meet our clients where they're at. And we say, what do you need? What do you want? And sometimes those are questions that are not easily answered. And so we really try to help fill the gaps for our clients and really the citizens of this county to move on, right, to have success for them and for their children. So over the last several years, we have been turning away too many families, and that's due to lack of bed space. We're consistently busy. If you were not aware, we rank number one, sometimes number two, but mainly number one in the county for the highest DV rates, Yakima County. And so after multiple years of turning away families because of a lack of space, we're expanding. So we are adding 112 new beds, emergency shelter. And if you are familiar with where Providence Hospital once was St. Elizabeth, Regional, there we go, the other name. There is a small brick building behind it. It's not that small. It has 112 new beds coming in it, but that's going to be our new shelter. Our original building is going to continue. And so we would love at some point that some of you would come and see it. We would love that. We can go next. It's up here.
One of the things we've been really looking at across the county is what is the prevalence of domestic violence. In Yakima County, for instance, domestic violence is one of the number one calls that law enforcement go on. They serve about 3,500 calls a year. And our domestic violence shelter, as Lupita said, is serving 19,000 people across the county. So domestic violence in the Sunnyside area, one of the things we learned is your police department in 2025 went on 360 domestic violence calls. And our YWCA in 2025 served 98 families from Sunnyside specifically. And we went back and tracked from 21 to 24, and we served 289 folks. And so we know it's very difficult for families to come forward, to even call for help, to even look for resources. We work very closely with the Lighthouse and the staff there. We have a very strong partnership. And so because domestic violence is such a prevalent issue in this county, we have a real desire to partner and be in relationship to all of the community leaders across the county. And that's why we wanted to really come today. One of the things that I'm especially proud of around this domestic violence expansion is we have been answering 800 to 1,000 crisis calls every month for almost 2 years from all across the county. We, in 2025, and also in 2024, there were 1,000 families who called us who needed emergency shelter, and our current shelter was full. We have 45 beds. And so this issue, I think sometimes we think it's happening to other people, and it really, we all know somebody. Every one of us in this room probably knows somebody, whether they've shared that or not. And so it's important, I think, for all of us to come together and really figure out what else we can do together. And also, we spend an exorbitant amount of time around prevention and outreach. So we have a staff person, Danny Aguilar, who travels the county. She lives in Granger, I believe now. And she goes to schools. We work with juvenile justice, all different areas where we can address youth and help them build some healthy relationships. And the main ultimate goal is domestic violence. We're teaching that to each other because it's how we learn how to communicate, problem solve, be in a relationship with other people. Sometimes it's happened in our own family. And so part of our role too is to work with folks across the county to how can we teach, especially youth coming up, some different coping skills, communication skills, problem solving that they can use in any relationship that they have, whether it's somebody in their family, a friend, or somebody they might end up in a dating relationship with. We have in our area high-risk team. So when law enforcement in our area goes out to a domestic violence call, they're having victims go through a lethality assessment to sort of see how lethal their situation is. And what's coming up more and more is youth. ending up also in domestic violence relationships. And so we've seen that as an unfortunate growing trend. And so we are anxious and excited to be able to be more closely aligned with all of the communities around the county, and especially also work with our friends at the Lighthouse. I think I've gone off script. Does anybody have any questions?
I got a question.
Yes.
So do you guys offer housing here in Sunnyside?
We do not have housing in Sunnyside currently. I think one of our dreams would be to provide more, whether it's emergency shelter, transitional housing, permanent housing in other places around the county, and also work with folks in communities to be able to do that. Because it seems like there's such a growing need that it would be fantastic to be able to do that in other areas. When we were looking for a building, we did consider coming to the Lower Valley, and I think because this was a new concept to us, we've raised $17 million to renovate this building. That the building is 1 block from our current building essentially. And so I think since this is our first foray into adding another building, we really felt like it needed to be a little closer to home while we get that experience of having multiple buildings. But we certainly know there's a need for something larger than what the Lighthouse is able to provide here in this area.
I have a question. So y'all are in Yakima. When you said that last year alone, our Sunnyside dealt with 360 TV calls. And, I'm just wondering, since that number being pretty high, what, if somebody is needing shelter at that moment, and we're like 30 some minutes out from Yakima, is there transportation around us that's also provided? And at like what hours?
So our services are 24 hours a day, every day of the year. So if we had somebody from anywhere in the Lower Valley who needed to come to us, we would work with them to figure out how to do that. So if we have to get up in the middle of the night and come and get you, we will do that. Sometimes we can partner with law enforcement and they'll bring them part of the way, and we meet people part of the way. Like, we try to be very flexible. So, but because if somebody's in danger, we don't want to leave you in that spot. In that moment, we want to try to figure out how to get you into a safe place.
Okay, so you all have a 24-hour
Yes,
hotline?
yes. So we have a 24-hour hotline. And the number's probably on your card, 509-248-7796. So that's answered 24 hours a day. We have staff on duty 24 hours a day. So there's always somebody that a person could speak to. If somebody happens to be in Yakima, you can walk in during Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and just walk in without an appointment and speak to somebody. Like, we try to be flexible. And we've also considered finding a spot in some of the other communities and having office hours, if you will, right? That we could come and be in a spot in the different communities, so people could just come and walk in on a given day and time and get information that way too.
Mm-hmm. I have a follow-up question to that. Do you all ever find times throughout the year where you are full and having to turn people away, or is there always some sort of connection to place someone somewhere safe?
Sure. So even when we are full, we try to do lots of safety planning. So some people want to stay where they're at till we have a spot open. Some people want to come and we'll put you in a hotel. Sometimes people are really trying to get to family in another community, so we can help people with that. So we try to work together with that person to figure out how they can stay safe if for instance, we happen to be full. And
Excuse me.
hopefully with this new expansion, that will happen less often is the goal.
Thank you.
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Julia Hart. I'm sorry, I'm calling in via Zoom. I'm sorry I'm not there in person.
That's okay. Hi,
My
Julia.
Hi, my question is I worked with the Lighthouse, been a few years ago as an ED there. And I know that at the time we worked with the Yakima domestic, the domestic center up there quite a lot. I think it was during the first transition into the building you have now. And I remember that we worked a lot transporting people to Yakima because if we ran out of room in Sunnyside, we'd try to set them up in sheltering in Yakima at your place. So I'm just curious, are you still working with the Lighthouse as far as immediate? Because I know they used to have a series of advocates that could go and help people go to the hospitals and then for the different situations, and then also to help them find some kind of safety. Are you still working with Lighthouse in that regard?
Yes, absolutely. We talk to them almost on a daily basis, our advocate staff back and forth. So sometimes we have people in Yakima that don't want to stay in Yakima and they want to come to the Lower Valley. Sometimes Lower Valley people might want to come up and stay with us. So we work very closely with them. And I did let Leticia, the director for the Lighthouse, know we were coming today. So
Yeah.
we love their team and they do an amazing job. And we're grateful to have them as partners.
I appreciate you saying that because I know that they face some of the same things. Those 360 calls sometimes end up being some of the Lighthouse advocates end up being some of the first on the scene, I hope.
Yes, yes.
And at least that's the way the program, I believe, is set up as well. But I'm just glad to hear that you guys are in concert as far as services down here in Lower Valley. I know it's a huge job, and I appreciate your dedication to it.
Well,
Thank
we
you.
love the Lighthouse and we're grateful, very, very grateful for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other question. I noticed on your slide and on your handout here, you talk about Rocio's place.
Skip to Rocio's place slide. I know we jumped around.
And how did you come up with that name? Maybe there's a history to that. And you mentioned here in your report that of the 18 million, you got 150 to go.
Yes.
Can you fill in the details?
Sure. So Rocio was a woman who stayed in our transitional housing program. And in 2021, on New Year's Day, she was murdered basically in front of our building. And her abuser had been stalking her. She had been living in our transitional housing for quite a long time and doing amazing, getting her life kind of organized, what she was going to do next. She had a little 3-year-old girl named Emma, and she had gone out on New Year's Day. And based on we have security cameras and stuff. So based on the security footage, we could see him stalking her and following her just around the block in our little neighborhood. And he got out and broke her car window in and did all kinds of terrible things to her and drove to the end of the street where this new building basically is. And he got out, took the child, ran up the street to the car he had come in, and all sorts of mayhem happened, but he murdered her essentially. And so calling this building Rocio's place is in honor of her. She was an immigrant woman who had come to this valley with, because she has other family here, had been here a while trying to create her own life. After that happened, her abuser had gotten on the freeway coming south in the wrong direction. He hit another family, and one of those passengers did not survive. And he's in prison now for 30-some years. And we worked for a whole year with her family. They came from Mexico and stayed with us, and we worked through the legal system so they could adopt her little girl. And she's living and thriving in Mexico with the family. On September 16th at 10 a.m., we're having a ribbon cutting as sort of a celebration of opening our new building. You're certainly all welcome, and we'll make sure you have those details. And her family's going to join us, some of the members. So we also had another woman that we did not work with specifically, but her name was Emily Harris. And her family has the Brian Harris used cars in Sela. And she was murdered by her husband in 2020. And her family has raised almost $1 million for our YWCA as part of the way they're dealing with what happened in their family. And so our current building will be called Emily's Place. And to me, they really reflect sort of the gamut of domestic violence, because Emily came from a family that is well known, you know, in our area, and somebody nobody would ever think would be in a domestic violence situation. And she ended up losing her life, and no one in the family knew there was anything wrong. And then you have Rocio, who comes, you know, from an immigrant family, coming here, putting her life together, and, you know, she lost her life too. So both of our buildings center in honor of these two women.
I think we will end with, we've hopped around. We've done a really good job of that. But Mayor Fausto, you mentioned that the 300 plus calls were high, and it certainly is a high number. But for the 16,000 plus population in Sunnyside, it's probably a grossly under reported. It's likely that there's many other calls that were just never reported. And it's very likely that the numbers that we have for domestic violence that pertain to the city of Sunnyside don't overlap with what has been reported to the police department here. So two different populations that probably don't cross over. But we know that the city of Sunnyside invests in public safety, youth development, right? Economic growth, family stability. So investing in these kinds of services is really important. It's an investment for Sunnyside, right? To have safer neighborhoods, safer streets, stronger families, healthy children. And so we wanted to come and share these things with you. And we'll probably be back. We're going to start tracking numbers for different cities and different parts of our county. And as we expand, this is such a huge issue in our county that we truly believe that this is all of our problem. And so this is the way to find solutions, is to work together. So the last slide will tell you that we are a 24/7 facility every day of the year, like Sherry mentioned, and help is always available. Whether someone's in crisis or not, they can call us. And we will continue doing outreach and marketing, you could call it, to make sure that everyone knows who we are, especially in the Lower Valley.
I think we had a couple questions
Sure.
over here.
So I've worked in this field for many years through domestic violence, through Northwest Behavioral Modification Clinic. We worked with a lot of the perpetrators of DV, and you're right, a lot of it is not reported. My brother actually owns Northwest Behavioral, so we've worked with that. So one of the things that we try to emphasize a lot is, you know, the protecting the victims of domestic violence. It's tough, but how can we as a community help you guys to be able to open some doors? Because I know I mentioned this a while back with Rosalinda, who's at the Lighthouse, and how as a community like us can be able to help out, because they struggled a lot to be able to move a lot of the victims of domestic violence to different places, because I remember they tried to move them out of Sunnyside, so it wasn't easy access for the perpetrators. So how does that work for you guys?
Well, I think definitely now, since we have more space, it's probably going to be a lot easier. And certainly I can circle back with Leticia and have more conversations about how we can do that. And I also think that as a community, as people identify places that we might be able to do some outreach and some education, we're always open to do that. And we also know that in Yakima County, there's only one domestic violence intervention treatment provider, which is Ray, and he does an amazing job. And we also know we need more folks that can go through the process and become certified in a sense through the state. They have a special process, but that is one area that is severely lacking in our communities, is more help and support and education and all the things for the people that are doing harm to others through abuse. And because some people can and do want to change, and there's a lot of hurdles for that too. So I think, you know, as much as we are on the victim side, we also want to recognize there also needs to be support on the other side, because sometimes those families do want to work it out or stay together or, you know, be able to coexist if they're co-parenting. So what can we do to try to set up some supports to make that happen? And I don't know if that really
No,
answers
that's,
your
you know, and
question
it's
directly.
true, you know, when I used to work with Ray, and Ray continues to do this, and he's been doing this for a long time, a very long time. I think almost 2-3 years out of high school, and we've been out of high school for almost 30 years, but it's been a long time that he's been doing this field, and he's actually, the need is so high that he travels to Tacoma and Spokane and Yakima and all over to be able to do this type of work, but it's much needed.
We need to clone him.
Go ahead, Counselor Zesati.
My question is just a little bit more curiosity. Do you find that there's a certain time of the year where there's higher calls, cases and so forth? I'm just thinking wintertime, you're indoors more and stuff, and I wonder if
I
that-
do. So I've been in this field for about 40 years now. I started when I was a baby. I have to preface that. But I do think now it is true when people are together in the winter months that, you know, it's heightened tensions and things like that. But for us, we're busy all year round. What we do see is people being more mobile in the summer, in the spring. So we might have people that are kind of moving around more then, but we're sort of consistently busy all the time now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. As a council, you know, I'm sure you have, you're from Yakima, so I don't know how your council relationship is. But as a council, as part of one of the cities in the Lower Yakima Valley, what is it that we can, you know, I know you asked as a community what we can do. But it's also very important that the city hall and council stays connected to organizations like yours. What can we do to continue a collaboration in that sense? I see these flyers, and I don't know if we have them over at City Hall. I also see that you do community training, so maybe it's something that the city manager would want to do with his staff. And I don't know if our PD also takes trainings from you all, and if that's an option. If they don't,
Yeah, so yes to all of that. So we love to come and do trainings and educate people about all different things around domestic violence, even how to respond if you meet somebody. Law enforcement all throughout the county participate in different domestic violence trainings. So I'm sure the Sunnyside Police participate in that. In October, the 14th, is it? It's the second Tuesday of October. We are organizing a domestic violence summit, so all law enforcement is invited to that. And we actually have people coming from all over the country that are law enforcement trainers to provide training. So I know that that is getting organized. So we are very open and happy to come and do trainings, to bring materials. The Lighthouse and the YWCA can join together and do all of these things, including volunteer training and all different things. We're open to, you know, partnering in what ways the community wants to be in relationship, and certainly support the council. Or, you know, you may have employees of the city that have, you know, they might be going through something, and, you know, if they need help and support, we can come and meet with them on site. We've done that with other employers. There's also Domestic Violence Coalition that meets the second Tuesday of the month in Yakima. And quite a number of years ago, there was a coordinated community response team that was meeting, that was more countywide. And we had tried to sort of evolve that into a more Lower Valley group. And we were meeting at Legends Casino. And so I know there's still a desire to continue to do that. So we'll keep working on that and try to build some momentum that way.
There's a couple more questions. Go ahead, Counselor Vasquez, and then Counselor Dolan.
So your helpline, is it also available in Spanish?
Yes.
Okay, and then also, I think it's just like important, especially for Sunnyside, for us to also just spread the word and just for like to put this on the record. This is all free of charge, right? Like there's no insurance, like no one needs to bring insurance proof, just so that everyone's aware of that.
Yes, so everything is free of charge. We also don't ask about citizenship. Like if somebody needs citizenship help and get connected to an immigration attorney, or, they're having problems with immigration, we're happy to help with that. But we don't want any of those things to be a barrier. So it is completely free of cost. We are funded through a whole variety of government grants and community donations. So it's really important for us that people can come. You could come with nothing, and everyone is so generous. You will have more clothes and shoes and toys and hygiene products than you can ever use.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Are you
Counselor
looking for buildings to expand in Sunnyside?
Maybe. Lupita and I have now decided we should be building developers
We
on the side.
we have a building that comes to mind right away. It's called Silverstone,
Okay,
and you might check with the police department on that one.
okay, thank you. We will check it out.
I had a question. Oh, okay, last question, very quick. Do you all work around legislation to help combat the root cause of the rising cases of DV? So these are, I see that direct services are always needed. But what are we doing to try to mitigate that? And then that's where maybe council can come into play. Like what data y'all are collecting that can help us understand where our policy work should be moving into?
Yes, we do some of that work, and we do it in two ways. We often work with our state domestic violence coalition on some of the bills that are coming through, and, either speaking for or against those. And we certainly try to spread the word to everyone we can, so they can consider contacting also and speaking out for those things. And we also have the ability to work like with your local council here, with your local council, if you think you want to develop, if you don't have any policies, if an employee is a victim of domestic violence or your employee is perpetrating the abuse, like there's different ways that we can work together on those things. I was sharing with somebody recently, I'm originally from Indiana, and when people would get a protection order, we would go to the courthouse, and it started out, we would just stand at the end of the jury box, and then the judge would call us up, and we'd have the 2 minutes with the judge, and they would typically approve a temporary order. Then it evolved to, they had a special, we would go to the judge's clerk's office, and she would take the paperwork and go back, and the judge would review it and approve a temporary order. In Washington, we don't really do things like that, but I see there's a lot of benefit to even thinking through what are the processes we're using for different things around the courthouse, and how can we improve on that, or how can we have advocates, and I know the Lighthouse advocates go to court with people quite a bit. What other things can we continue to do to make those connections?
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes,
Is there
thank you so
any-
much for having us.
Yeah, is there any other questions for Lupita or Sherry? No. Thank you. This is all wonderful
Follow up with
information.
PDFs of some of those things so that you guys can have them and take them wherever you need.
Yes, thank you. That would be great.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. Drive safe. Okay. So they threw out a few dates on there, and I tried to capture them to maybe I can send them over to Pat and have them send them over to you all in case anyone wants to attend those coalition meetings in Yakima. Moving on to item B now, which is well number 6, safety improvement presentation with HLA. And this is Mr. Mejia's item.
Good afternoon, council and mayor. Yes, so I have HLA here, Robert Scott, the PE. I have Marler Menza, and also Mr. Mike Hyatt with HLA. We're here to present to you the rehabilitation, oh gosh, that's a big word, for well number 6. So I thank you for the last meeting that we were at, that we had the agenda approved amendment, and we're here to answer questions and go through this presentation for well 6. I know that some of the council members had questions about well number 6, and we're here to answer it. So I will turn it over to Mr. Rob Scott.
So is this good placement here? Yeah. So thank you for having us here this evening. The well number 6 rehab project has been something that's been talked about for quite some time. It hasn't always been in the public eye. And so, yeah, I think it's useful to come back from time to time and talk about how we got here. Next slide, please. So to start on the project timeline for the most recent discussions of this started back when we were working on the city with their water system plan update between 2022 and 2024. And so the purpose of that plan was to go through all of the city's water system, your wells, your reservoirs, your pipelines, and identify what the greatest concerns were for the system, what projects you should be focusing on to increase the capacity of the system and enable continued growth. And so that was finished off at the end of 2024. In November, there was a public hearing discussing the conclusions of the plan and what the next steps were. And so that insert there was the last slide of the presentation, which is understandably kind of small to see from here. But the main point from that was that the next steps were going to include the fact that the city immediately needed to get additional well capacity. And so that included drilling new wells, which the city is planning to do as funding becomes available. But there was also a few wells in your water system that had not been operated for quite some time because there was concerns about water quality. And it wasn't necessarily that it was always, depending on the well, it wasn't unsafe, but there was aesthetic concerns. It was turbid. There was concerns about some metals that might, you do laundry with the water and it might, stain. And so when possible, the city did not want to be using those wells. And so that was our understanding, was that these wells needed to be rehabbed, because even though you want to drill new wells, if you have wells that you're not even using, the most effective way to get that capacity in your system is to fix what you've got. And so one of the first steps to take was right when that water system plan was completed, the city applied to the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund program through Department of Health to rehab both well 6 and well 7. Next slide, please. And so after that application went in, the city actually determined that it could do the well 7 work out of reserves. And so that part of the application was pulled out. And so this is just a well 6 project that ultimately the city was funded for. So you were notified in 2025 that you did receive funding for this project. And then a task order was developed to pursue the well 6 rehab efforts. And so the original plan for that was the first step was going to be to do some testing. The city hadn't operated the well in quite some time. So get the well operating again, do some water quality testing so we could start to ascertain what the actual problems were and help to diagnose what those problems so that we could design a project to fix it and have you up and running with your well. So we got the well running and the city staff said, water quality is great. So we said, okay, well, let's do some testing later. Ran it for a couple more months. Water quality is still good. This continued for quite some time when we said, well, we still have a good funding package here to do some work at the well. Is there anything else we want to do there? Because we can't really design an improvement if the well doesn't seem to exhibit this problems. And so we talked to Department of Health, we worked with city staff and said, we have a pretty good combination of loan and grant here to do work at the well. Is there anything else that we want to do at it so that we don't lose the money? And so a couple things came out of that. The HVAC in that well doesn't really work. And so you can see in that picture there, normally what would be a solid door, the city basically puts up kind of buffed up screen doors on the well because you can't run your fans. And so the well house overheats in the summer. And so you take the doors off and put these on so that you at least have some amount of airflow into this well. And so that as in terms of security, that's not wonderful. It's a solution that lets the well operate when it's 100 degrees out, but it's not really the solution you like. There's no fencing around this well house, so it's right by the high school. That's something that should really be addressed. The Department of Health kind of always tells you should really have a secure area for your well sources. So there, we'll get more into the scope in a minute, but ultimately, Department of Health agreed that you could change the scope of what you were going to do at this well. And so that's what we did. We worked with city staff and said, okay, let's come up with a new scope of work so that we can use this funding effectively. Next slide. So this is the project funding you have is through Department of Health Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. The amount is $741,000. 35% of that is grant, 65% loan. The interest rate on that is 1.75%. The original scope for that's the breakdown between design and construction funding. And you have until January 2030 to complete the design and construction program. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the original scope of this was that you were going to clean out the well, you're going to diagnose what the water quality issues were, design a solution, and publicly bid a construction project to rehabilitate the well. So the new scope that's been proposed is that because there was no water quality issues diagnosed, there are other upgrades, including HVAC controls. So right now, the well, many of your wells, if you have an issue, you get an alarm or something, city staff are aware of the problem, they can come and fix it. Right now, your wells don't call out from this particular well house. There's electrical upgrades. There have been some things that have been done in that well house to keep it up and running. The extension cords kind of running from between different items. Really, that should be in conduit to meet electrical code. The HVAC upgrades will require some electrical changes in the well house. And then, as I mentioned, really the fencing to give you a secure location, since right now it's just out adjacent to the high school. So next. So the original task order that was proposed was task order 2025-02. And the critical pieces of that are that the first step that was contracted was to do that initial review of the water quality and prepare for a design and construction phases. So that is still what is being proposed now. The overall approach hasn't changed. It's just what we're going to do as far as the design has changed. But the original task order did identify next steps of design and construction phases. Slide, please. So that's kind of the quick rundown of how we got to where we're at now, and try to answer any other questions.
Okay, questions?
I have a question. So I once did a kind of a drive around through the city and went and looked at a bunch of our wells. I did have a conversation with Hector a while back. Some of these wells, they have a light on top. What does that light signify? So what is the meaning of that light being there?
Excuse me. So you're talking about the red light that's on top,
Yes.
correct? Okay, so that red light is supposed to indicate that, and I believe you're thinking of more the sewer, not the water. The sewer well lifts have a red light, so that indicates there's something wrong with that pump. It's indicating that it shows off that there's something wrong, someone needs to get called out. So that's what that alarm's for. Those sewer lifts have been turned over to a computer which is called the SCADA, which as at the wastewater treatment plant, that the supervisor gets the phone calls and they answer it and call somebody out to go see what's wrong with that particular lift.
So are those lights even feasible to having them there?
Yes, they are, because sometimes if
But they're broken.
they're all broken,
A lot of them are broken.
then I will make
They're
sure.
not working. A lot of them, they're cracked. They don't turn on or something. So
Okay.
that was that's why I'm asking that question, because if we're working on the pumps, but some of these lights are not working.
Then I will talk to my sewer supervisor to make sure that those are repaired, or if some of them are not even operable, that we take them down. Because I know that a lot of our sewer lifts are on the SCADA call out.
Do we have a timeline about when would this happen?
I will talk to my sewer supervisor tomorrow.
And just for clarification, that's the sewer lift station that's
That's
not
not water.
pertaining to well number 6.
So
Okay.
I brought it up because I know that has a little something to do with where we're at, but it was right here and it's been there for a while. And right now that we discussed, well 6, I wanted to kind of bring that up. That was the reason.
No, and that's okay. That's what we're here for, to have a good discussion.
Okay. Counselor Dolan.
Yeah, I had a question about, the task order. You have 30, 40, and 50. Are we gonna have access to the details on those items? You have them separated by design, and then is it designed for a fence to go up around it?
So you're talking about from the original task order, what, 30 and 40?
2502.
So your original task order had, the language in that said that in the future, there was going to be a design task order and there was going to be a construction management. The task order that came to you a couple weeks ago was for the design engineering piece of that. So that's the 4.0. And 5.0 would be construction services. If the city continued down this road, they would say, now that it's been designed and it's ready to be bid, we would request construction services to administer the funding and the construction management of that project.
So HLA is doing they're working with the school district for the fencing?
So the property that the well's on is on the city property, and so it would be fencing the property that the city owns.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I have a few questions. So for the record, this money, the 741,000, that's going to be broken down into 171 for design and then 570,000 for construction. It has nothing to do with rehabilitating the water. So it has nothing to do with improving our quantity or quality of well number 6. Is that a yes or a no?
The short answer is you are correct. At this point, there's no water quality issue that has been identified. And so if there were to be a problem that would recur in the future, which we can't speak to, then there could be potential that something would have to happen at that time. However, at this point, after having run the well for a year, it's still the issues still haven't come back. And so the question just becomes, do we want to use the funding that we have available to make fixes that the city wants done? Or do we tell the Department of Health we're not interested in pursuing a project, and then they take those funds back and they can be used for other applicants?
So, okay, I just have a quick follow-up. So you're saying that there's been no testing of well number 6 that's indicated that it's pumping sand or any other sediment, iron, is it manganese? So you're saying that there's been no testing that's confirming that any of these substances are coming out of this well?
Not that we've been made aware of. I believe the city continues to do its testing, but there haven't been any testing results that suggest
I
that.
did ask for recent tests, but I don't think I received them.
So we can't get those tests. Those tests are getting done by our water quality report and WQMR. So we do test that well often to make sure that there's, obviously we do coliforms out on the area. And we do have a checklist that we need to do. So we take a chlorine test also there. So.
Oh, okay. Just because a few weeks ago, I did get a message from someone at the Ajo Homes, and their water was completely brown. It was during the, I think it was maybe in the early morning, and I did send it out to you, Hector, and to Mr. Haley. And I did ask you all to look into this, and I'm not sure what happened, if this is because well number 6 is being pumped and it's producing sand or whatever has to do with the flushing, but the flushing was done at different hours than it usually is done. And I don't know if I think the well eventually was shut off.
Correct.
So what I'm trying to get at is if we're having issues with the water, and the reason I voted against this the last time is because if there's issues that are going on with the water quality and quantity, and 741,000 is going out of our city's budget, 65% of it being loan, then I'm just very worried about, this project continuing.
And just to reassure you, the water that happened over there it was not from well 6. So the Ajo area is a residential area that doesn't use a lot of water and it doesn't get moved a lot. So the settlements are going to be settling down into the line. What I did, and it was on my judgment, is I sent 2 water guys out during the day to have the flushing done. I flushed lines during, I think 3 to 4. Water was red. I had them flush it for quite a while, and then we stopped. We are going to return to flush everything at the night, during late night or early morning, to make sure that that problem does not happen again. Settlements stop, and if the water does not get used quite a bit, as much as industrial areas, you're not going to have a lot of movement. So I have talked to my water supervisor. We have a plan, and we will be moving forward with that.
Right, so this well isn't being used year-round, and that's the
No.
other issue. So we're gonna invest 741,000 for a well that's not being used year-round. And we're also not improving the water, the quality or the quantity. But I'm gonna go ahead and go to Counselor Vasquez.
Yeah,
She's had her
so
hand-
question for what you were saying. So if we were to go back to the Department of Health and tell them that we no longer wanted to pursue this grant, is there a possibility for us as a city to lose future grant opportunities?
I don't believe they would, they wouldn't hold it against you or anything like that. I mean, it sounds like that's what you're alluding to, is if you turn back money, they're going to say in the future, you turn back money once, we are not likely to give it to you again.
Yeah, and I ask this because I know that there are certain grants where they will become a little bit more skeptical towards like approving because there is need in other cities.
Sure, I don't think that would be a risk in this case, especially once the situation has been made known to them, which they're already aware. We've discussed this. One thing in particular with this Department of Health program is they have stated in upcoming years, they do anticipate the amount of funding that they're going to be able to put out is going to be dropping. They only have a few more years where they think they'll be able to fund at the level they have been, after which there's going to be budget cuts. And so the concern would be that if you turn back money and you decided at a later date you wanted it again, it would be a more competitive environment at that point, but.
Okay. And for clarification purposes, so if we were to decide to move forward with this project, the benefits of doing this right now, from what I'm understanding, is we would just be updating the HVAC, controls, electrical, fencing. Is that correct?
So we're losing sight of what the real reason is. The real reason is safety. We do not have a perimeter fence around that well. It has been been graffitied. It has been not broken into, but it has been where people have been trying to get in. What I've also been told is during the middle school games, I guess, people climb that well and sit on top of it. So that alone is safety alone, that we need to protect our well. It's a DOH, it's a must from them. And I believe that's what we're losing sight of, the safetiness of that well. We don't have a vacuum in there to get all the chlorine out if there is a chlorine leak. If we send somebody in there without any SCBAs or any way that it's breathing out, remember, chlorine is stronger than air. No, not stronger than air. Sorry. It is heavier than air, but it's also can be very dangerous. And that's what I believe that we're losing sight of. It's the safety that coming to that well to be able to protect not only ourselves and our employees and our citizens, but the children around it. What if someone falls down there? Who's going to be liable? The city. And I believe that's what we're losing sight of.
And I've actually witnessed, I'm not going to lie, I've actually witnessed on 4th of July when the fireworks are going crazy. I've seen a lot of youth jumping up there just to kind of get a better seat to see the fireworks. So that's true.
We need to ban fireworks.
Operating a well or any pump house system without an adequate HVAC system to keep all the mechanicals in there cool and in a pleasant for operating environment is that always at a risk that when you need that well to operate, it won't, because they'll overheat and could shut down. So that's always something to consider as far as safety and, good operating conditions.
Okay. I know we have a few other ones. Just very quickly, can y'all confirm if it's a state requirement, if there's an RC that these wells have to have a fence around them? Is it state required? I know you said a DOH, they say it's a must. Is it a requirement?
Yeah, I can look into that and make sure get you that answer.
So-
It's a requirement from Andy Cervantes, who is our state rep that represents us, or that,
The Department of Health Regional Engineering.
yeah. So he has stated it, we needed a fence. That is the only one that I've seen in 2 cities that does not have a fence around it.
If you built it today, they would require a fence. Because it's existing, they don't come back and demand a fence, but they recommend it.
Thank you.
They come.
Thank you. Counselor Dolan.
No, I guess my first question would be, and I have a couple, the amount that we're spending on this, is it transferable to another well?
Yep.
Because I think that there's other wells we have that could really use more than just a barrier around it. And I agree with you on the HVAC, but the barrier could be a block wall. And we have a lot of contractors that do block walls. That's why the the amount of money we're spending on design, I'm going back to the big corners we have downtown. I mean, those are great and work great, but there's other things that are more pressing that cause people to get injured, like the sidewalks, just 2 blocks or a block over from all the nice looking stuff we did downtown. I think we need to focus on not only safety, but also utilizing the wells that, like 10, I hate to keep bringing that up, but I think some of these wells could be looked at again for water quality and a little jump start on those instead of worrying about. I don't think a fence is going to stop any of those kids. I taught there for 25 years and they'll climb right up them anyway.
No, but we are trying to be proactive of trying to keep us safe.
And I think a different approach to it would be better money wise. I mean, we could have you guys set up to throw a block wall up there, and that would keep them out better because they can't climb an 8-foot block wall as easy as they can get through a cyclone fence. So
I think you asked kind of a couple different questions through there. The first one being, can this be transferred to another well? I would say the short answer is no, but in theory, the answer is no. If we talk to them, we can certainly have that conversation and see if it's a possibility, but the answer is no unless they make an exception. And so we can always have that conversation with them if that's truly what the will of the city would be to do. The follow-up to that being whether we're just designing a fence. The fence is a critical part of the project, but it is also a fairly small part of the project from a capital point of view. I mean, in terms of what the project is from, the design aspect of it, the majority of that is retrofitting the HVAC and redoing the electrical design of it. And that's where the bulk of the design work is. Putting up a fence, I don't think you necessarily need us to get a contractor out there to put a fence around it. And so I mean, as kind of to use Hector's language, I mean, I think we would lose sight if we said this was just a fence project, but I do appreciate the fact that the fence is maybe not the largest part of this. It is critical for security though.
And the electrical, hardwiring instead of having extension cords is a great move, but the prices on this, I just think are a little bit high. If we could spread that, I'm just looking for ways to spread it around to other wells so we can get some of those wells up and running to help our need.
I have a couple questions on that end. Go ahead, Councilor Chavez, and then I'll go to Councilor Vasquez.
Can I go to the slide of the amount that they're requesting? Okay, so I'm looking at the amount, $741,000. What are we doing with $741,000? Putting a wall, putting HVAC, and fixing the electrical. So you're telling me it's going to cost $741,000 for that?
No, I am saying that when we first applied for this money, we were going to be testing the well. We were going to be doing a design for rehabbing the well, and then we were going to be doing the rehabilitation effort on that well. Recently, we did a rehab project for the city of Grandview, and the construction cost for that was about $500,000 was the low bid on it. So when we first scoped this project, that was what we were looking at, was an equivalent project to that. At this point, we have gotten through doing that initial analysis for sampling the water. We are going to be working into the design. As far as the actual construction cost, we have not got that far yet. This was what the construction cost was originally requested back when it was a well rehabilitation project.
So I want to add to it. So we have a well that we don't use all the time that we want to invest $741,000. So if we, and I know this is probably a question that was asked, but I want to reiterate on this. If we were to use that money for a different, can we send it to the Department of Health? Will that money be sent back or will it not be used?
So in answer to the question that was asked about whether it could be transferred, at this point, the answer would be no.
No.
So we can
just
turn it
lose
back
it.
and they could say we could reapply to do, I believe it was well 10 that you're speaking to. So we could, this coming November, we could apply for a well 10 project. That being said, there's always the possibility we can talk with the Department of Health. I don't want to say the answer is no. I just know their base reaction based on our understanding of this project, of the funding program, is we cannot transfer to another well. If we tell Department of Health, hey, we just changed the scope to this, we want to change it again, that's certainly a conversation they could have, but it is outside of the scope of what they would normally do for funding.
And for the record, what does well 6 serve? Who does it serve?
It serves your water system.
I understand, but what, it's obviously you're saying not all homes, correct?
That's my question. So yes, sorry. So that goes and distributes into the water line. It distributes all over town and not just one section of town. We are what we call a loop system. All our main lines are connected together, whether it goes all the way up to the water towers or out to the distribution system. So it's not just concentrated in one area.
Counselor Vasquez, and then I have a question.
Yeah, so well, kind of Tom kind of asked my question, but I don't know. Could you elaborate? You had made a statement about like the extension cords and electrical. Could you elaborate a little bit on the issues that are happening in that well?
I don't think you can see it in any of these pictures. If you flip through a couple of the slides, there's a couple of well house pictures in there. I don't think the one I'm thinking of is in there.
Mm.
Okay. So, I mean, if you were to look, okay, yeah, unfortunately there's one. So the electrical, what often happens is if you built this well, do you recall how long ago this was built? Say this was built in, say, the 60s. So you'd have a contractor come in and you'd build it. All your electrical would be in conduit. And so it would be kind of a clean install. And then for whatever reason, let's say a pump goes out or you have to add some new monitoring equipment. That kind of work isn't necessarily done at a contractor in conduit standard. It's we need to add this or that. You have an extension cord, so you might be connecting a new fan or something to it, where maybe the guys that work in the well house, they say it's always hot in here, so we add a fan in here. Or we add a chlorine analyzer that wasn't in there originally, and we say, okay, that's gonna, you have a lot of resourceful staff in your city who go in and make changes as they need to be made, but you're not necessarily doing it to the full extent of a new design. You're kind of fixing things with duct tape. That's kind of, that's the resourcefulness of city staff. And so there are aspects of what you have now that you do have cords that are running, that it's not hardwired conduit. Whereas if you were to go in there and change out some of your HVAC, put in new fans, put in new, as the design changes, a contractor would bid the project and take some of those things that aren't necessarily constructed to that level and update everything in the well house.
Okay.
And so I wouldn't say that you have, there aren't necessarily concerns about what's there now. It's not like you have problems. It's just, when you go into update, you kind of have to fix everything that's there now.
Okay. And so from what I recall from the last time we were kind of talking about this well, from my understanding, this is only used half the year, or?
Correct. This is used during the summertime peak water times.
Okay.
Which is May. I think we started in May and we go all the way at least to the end of August, probably mid-September.
May to like August. So let's say something were to happen with this well and we didn't have it, would the city of Sunnyside, would we be at jeopardy with water or?
Yes, because it's one of the wells that doesn't get used only during the peak time. But all our wells need to be rejuvenated. They need to turn off. They need to have the aquifer filled back up. So it is essential to our water system. At the same time, it does provide water for us during the peak times. Our biggest well is well 9. Now that shuts on and off when we have the reservoirs full. Like I said, this one's been running for quite some time now, and it's been keeping us up on our levels.
Okay.
And an important thing with a water system, when you do, and Rob's much better at this portion of it than I am to speak on it, but when you design your water system, you have to design it and do all your calculations for your reservoir storage and everything with the assumption that your largest well is inoperable, because that is a reality that it could go out, pump could go out, whatever. So having a fully operational and functional well 6 or as many wells as you can get online is an important redundancy factor, because you always have to assume that your best producing well could go out offline at any point. And that's an important aspect that is always in consideration when we design water systems, or when anybody does, as far as your reservoir. And I don't know, do you have more to add on that, Rob?
I would just say, to be clear, when we did the water system plan analysis with the city, you are actually right now using that criteria of having a well out of service. You actually already don't have enough well capacity to serve your existing customers. And so you've been able to get away with the fact that luckily you've had enough wells operating and you haven't had the peaks all happening at the same time. But when we did that water system plan, the reason why wells were identified as your greatest concern was when we have your largest well out of service, on paper, you already don't have enough well capacity to serve your citizens. And so.
Yeah, and that's not well number 6 though. That's not our largest well.
No, number 9 is.
So just very quickly, I remember talking when Jim Bridges was around, and I remember talking to him and some other water folks that had a lot of experience and no longer actually work for Sunnyside. But they actually have mentioned otherwise about well number 6, saying that if it was out of commission, we wouldn't be in jeopardy. There's other wells that actually pump a lot more water for the city that we should be focusing on making sure those are rehabilitated in terms of water quantity and quality. Again, I think that right now, and why I voted against is the last time, especially now, we're coming off the heels of a budget retreat as well. And so you're now talking to a council where you have to sell want versus need. Okay, we're not doing very well financially. And so we're going to have to figure out what is actually urgent and what we need to be prioritizing moving forward. And, these numbers are scary, and especially if it's not urgent, and especially if it's not a priority, especially if it's not going to be dealing with rehabilitating water. So, confirming that it's not, I know that council we already did a vote not too long ago, and this was to approve you, Hector, to move on with the application. Is that correct? Right? The contract, okay. So, now we're in a situation where, it seems like folks still have questions, and this is moving along. So I don't know, we're gonna have to figure out how we deviate here. I don't know if somebody else had a question. Leticia, Councilor Sati had a question, and then I'll come to you, Councilor Dolan.
Yeah, well, I just wanted, thank you. Tom did bring up earlier about the cost and so forth. So, and I also was going to ask, I thought I had understood previously that we only use this 3 months out of the year, but you're saying up to 6 months out of the year. So just, I guess, for clarification, the 171,000 design activities is basically the fencing or whatever's going to go around the HVAC and the wiring, the electrical. Okay.
The controls. That's part of the electrical design, is all of he alluded to the red lights on your sewers, lift stations, similar to the wells. When there's issues, rather than you rely on a red light system, it's an automatic system that makes phone calls. And so it's the controls where it's notifying staff and it's turning the wells on and off. So it's kind of the control brains to how the well
And
operates.
this one is not connected to our water data.
Counselor Hart, I'm gonna go to Counselor Dolan, then I'll come back to you. Go ahead, Counselor Dolan.
So having done a little bit of this before myself, I'm curious, can these funds be used for standby motors? I know when a pump goes out, you don't have a lot of time. You have to get it going again. So replacing a pump would be nice to have a standby set up on the shelf over there while you're getting all your wells in. Are these funds usable in that direction?
Just buy parts for the shelf, essentially.
To upgrade your safety situation. I mean, we had a talk about that with our swimming pool. And it was decided that we did need a pump on standby because kids won't wait. So I'm just curious how that money can be spread around.
Are you talking about the submersible pump that goes into the bowls
Or if you have a top,
or the motor itself?
yeah, if you
Yeah.
have a top motor, you
I-
things like that.
That
You
is
can't run
something.
down to the corner Ace Hardware and get ones.
No, you are correct. And that is something we can definitely look into to have essentially put on the side there so it could be usable at that well. Because obviously all wells are, some of them are submersible, some of them are centrifugal. So yeah, I mean, we can definitely look into that to see if that is even able through the grant, correct?
That would be something that we could potentially, if for instance, we were, as part of this project, one of the things we're looking at is the condition of the existing well. And so construction funds, if it was determined from the evaluation and design that, for instance, the well needed to be, or the motor needed to be replaced, we could get a replacement motor as part of what the contractor was supplying.
And if you have a track to pick it and load it and move it, those kind of things are real important too, because that's an added expense. If you have to move that motor from over here and you have a 40 horsepower motor to put over here, you've got to have a way to move it in that building. So
That is correct. And right now, that is a solid concrete ceiling. There is no way we would be able to get the motor out.
yeah, you just have to.
As part of an HVAC replacement project and replacing that ceiling fan, we could potentially look at putting a hatch in the ceiling. That's fairly typical for wells.
Rob, I have a question, unless Julie's gonna interrupt me.
No, go ahead.
You were saying $741,000 was based on construction costs from another similar project, so the actual cost could be less. Do I understand that?
At this point, we have not determined what the construction cost for this project is because we haven't started the design to really get into that very far.
Right, so it could be less because we're not doing a rehab on the project like what was originally thought to do. Second of all, it's 65% is what the city is going to be obligated to. And on a 20-year note, that's about $25,000 a year. And that's rate-based, so that's not coming out of the general fund. So that's a liquid fund, or it's a fund that's stable. So the actual cost to the city isn't going to be $741,000 out of our bucket. It's going to be 20 years at about $25,000 a year. Yeah.
Am I,
Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
thank you. I appreciate what you said there, Mr. Haley, talking about how this is stretched out over, that says right there, the time of completion is like 4 years. Again, with the loan that's stretched out over like a 20-year note, as you suggested. What I think we're getting away from, the idea is this particular project, we have the money now to take care of it. As the young man alluded to, we don't know for sure if that $741,000 is really going to be the right number when we get into the design, when we get into the construction, about how much money we're actually going to need. We're going to be going out for bids on this, so some of that money could be lower. But the basic idea here is that this well is ready, it's in line, the money is available. Let's just take care of it. We do have to get money for, and you can't transfer this money to another well. I don't you can never, it just really kind of boggles the mind that we don't get that. But each project, when you go out for money, when you go out for grants, the money is set for a particular project. This project happened to be well 6. Things do need to be fixed at well 6. We know that, and we need to admit that. There's a lot more about security there and safety features than we're recognizing. And so I really think we got to remember that. The fact that again, that this money can't be, and giving back the money is never, when you get money from the state or you get federal money, it's never a good idea to say, oh, wait, we just changed our mind. We're not going to do that project. Can we use it over here for something else? Well, no, because then you've got to go through the complete application process again. Is that not right, Mr. Scott?
I also want to say, I appreciate the young man.
Well, I can't see you, so I'm going by your voice.
May have been talking about.
Talking about Mr. Hagan. So I just want to say that while I agree, and I think it's been stated, I don't think that we'll be able to transfer to a different well. I also don't want to give the impression that we are stuck with this and it's this or nothing. I mean, if we think that if there was truly a priority that we wanted to do differently, which I don't know if that would be the right choice or not. However, the last thing we want to do is give the impression that we are not able to work with Department of Health on these things to make it happen, if that is the desire.
I have a quick question. So maybe a dumb question. If we do have the money, then why is it 65% loan?
That's just usually the way that these funding programs from the state divvy out the money. They have different buckets that they put. And so part of the way that they're able to give more for these big projects is a portion of the loan and a portion of a grant. So it's just the way these.
So you're saying we have the money to repay the loan with the interest?
No, so the way that it would work is that we would pay for the project and then we would submit the reimbursements to the funding agency. And then they would send us the money back as 35% grant and 65% loan. And so then we would have, once we've taken out that whole entire loan, then for the 20 years, we would pay that portion back.
At 1.75%?
Correct, which is a very good interest rate. Usually these state programs have really good borrowing interest rates. And it is one of those things, as city manager shared, is that these larger infrastructure projects, you do want to, in a lot of cases, if you have the money, it's great to be able to pay for those with fund balance or with cash. But in a lot of cases, it makes a lot of sense to extend that payment out, because then the actual users of the capital project are the ones that are paying it back over time. And so when you're looking over the next 20 years and you're paying that $25,000 of debt service, it's the people that are benefiting from that capital investment that are paying back that loan. And I also do, coming from my other city that is also having a couple water issues right now, I do just want to be another voice to say you do need redundancy very, very badly. It's very, very important. So.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Councilor Chavez.
So I'm trying to kind of wrap this around my head real quick. How did well 6 get picked? I understand we have 9 and 10 that have more issues that we use the most. Why is 6 the one that got picked? How did this come about?
Again, I wasn't here when the beginning of this project happened. I didn't even know about this till when I came on, and then a few months later, obviously, it got dumped on me, and that's where we're at. We had already started working on it. What I was told was we did have a stand problem there. It was not being used at all.
No.
And then we were losing. We didn't have enough water, so I was like, let's kick it on. Let's use 7. Let's get something flushing going out there so we can have some water out there. We started using the water. We had some testing done. Was that a different well?
You just said you did 6.
So
Yeah.
we did some testing on 6. We did not see anything that was popping out to us to, saying there was something wrong with it. So we just kept on using it.
I'm just trying to look at the logic here. We have well 9, well 10 that we use quite a bit, that's used the most. Well 6 isn't used that much. Why would we want to invest so much money to a well that doesn't get used as much to a well that needs to be fixed and is used all the time? That's what I'm trying to get to.
No, and I honestly wish I can give you an answer. If I can go back to 2023, 2024 and find out what was the rhyme behind the reason, I would love to give you that answer. I don't know. I honestly wasn't here at that time, nor, I can always call, I believe it would be.
Jim.
Was it Jim?
Jim Bridges. That thing that I gave you, that chart there shows you which ones are full-time and which ones are not.
That's what I was looking at. I'm like, we have more issues.
And 10,
Yes.
that's why I keep going back to 10 because it doesn't even get used because of issues. And no, I'm next.
I can speak directly to your question. I can tell you exactly why 6 and 7 were picked. When we were working on the water system plan, 6 and 7 were used not at all. And so the city had 2 wells that it did not turn on because they were afraid of the water quality. And you had issues during the summer where your reservoirs would drop all day with every single well available on. You would lose water in your reservoir. Overnight, people would stop using water. The reservoirs would come back up. The next day, they would drop with all the wells on. And so the city's concern at that point was, we have 2 wells that if we can get them up and running, we can eliminate that concern. They understood that there were wells that had other issues, but the concern was we do have 2 wells we can't even use at all. And so that was why those were selected for the funding application. The city then used available funds in the water fund to fix well 7 and said, okay, now let's get well 6 going. It is a great problem to have that you're not experiencing these issues with this well. And I wish I could tell you that I knew why that was, because it probably would have helped us to maybe apply for a project you might prefer. That being said, well 6 did not operate, and the fact that it does now is very useful. It does make it difficult to figure out how to move forward. And so we are trying to come up with a project that is very useful for well 6, even if it sounds like that's maybe not the well that is your concern at this point.
Because at the time of the application, we weren't running well 6 at all. So if well 9 went down, you would have been in just a world of hurt, because as he was saying is the reservoirs would drop all day without well 9 running it at all, and not running well 6 and well 10 at all, or 7 at all.
No, it was 10.
Yeah, 10.
This inventory shows
Yeah.
all the ones that
Yeah.
weren't being used.
So that's why the thought pattern was, if we can get well 6 rehabbed at the time, which was not being used, we went in there to get that back online to provide the necessary redundancy. And as we got it fired up and got it running and did some testing, we at least have the current assumption is that we don't understand why it wasn't in use. And that's why the funding was already there with the assumption that it was shut off for a specific reason and not used. So now we have this funding specifically for this well, and now your choices are give that funding back or do something that you could at least benefit the well because the funding is available.
Go ahead.
What initiated my questions, and I was told I ask a lot of questions, is that we went to Olympia earlier in the year, 4 of us, and Jim Bridges was one of them. And I got to sit in on a couple conversations we had with our friends over in Olympia about these wells. And one of the things I walked away with was that you get these grants and they can be used to fix this well or this well. And I knew about 10 a long time ago. And so I have several bits of information on this water facilities inventory that pretty much clear it up for me. And I was kind of passing that around. And that's why I thought maybe some of these funds could be shifted to a different one. I was under the assumption, we talked to Gloria and several others over there.
So some funding is very flexible. Some is not, We actually have we're able to secure a grant to drill well 14, which we are actively working with staff right now to bring those funds in, which is currently they present it to you as 75% grant with, I believe at the top of my head, with a 25%. And we've already put in the paperwork to request that the remaining 25% that could potentially be yours would be released and made 100% grant. And we do think that that's a very strong possibility.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so with that, we are under the way to working with EPA to for them to release the funds, and we'll get well 14 drilled at least, so.
That is the $2 million that
Yes.
we have, that we've been working towards.
Yes.
To make sure that we are able to drill another well.
Yeah.
On top of we are working together to make sure we are able to storage some of that water, which is where another water tower would be coming into play.
Yeah. I just have a quick question. You all, who did you all get the information from around regarding the wells and how well they're pumping and how they're not pumping and peak hours and so and I ask because I see now that there's some information being tossed around and it's not parallel to the information that we have here. So I'd just be interested to see who gave you that information that led us to believe that number 6 was it when we have a lot of other issues with the other wells.
So over the course of the 2 years between 2022 and 2024 is when we worked on the water system plan. And so during that time, we met with city staff. I know it was more than one gentleman. The person in particular I know of at that point, the head of your water department was Daniel Tiliano. And so he was the one.
Daniel Tiliano?
Yes. So,
Okay.
so he was your water system manager throughout the course of that project. That being said, there were other city staff in Public Works who sat in on meetings and we discussed. And whether or not there were active issues with well 6, at that point, the data did confirm that well 6 was not operated. And I believe that that was based on information that they had been told from previous water staff. I can't speak to how long they had been operating or when they had operated which well and when they hadn't. But they had said at that point they could not operate 6 and 7 because of complaints they got when they did.
Mhm. Yeah, for me, it's just really hard to make how do I say it? Well-informed decisions when it comes to our water system because I'm not a subject matter expert. And quite frankly, I'm not trusting all of the information that I'm receiving along the way. And so I don't believe that makes way for constructive and impactful decision making. I know that there seems like there's another question down there, and I would want to get to a point where what's going to be what are the action items after this, and that's going to be a council decision. I'm not sure which direction you all want to go. I don't know what our options are at this time, so I think we'll go ahead and take another question and then probably debate what the next steps will be after this. If we have no other option and we continue with the application, or if there's other options, or if there's you all go off and try to find them some really good deals. And I'll go to Councilor Vasquez.
So can I get your name actually?
Rob Scott.
Rob. Okay, perfect. So Rob, so what I'm gathering is that this well number 6 at the time was not functioning, and the reason why it was chosen was because it was picked for redundancy purposes.
Not exactly redundancy purposes on paper. So a part of what you do in the water system plan is you look at historical water use and how much your wells are pumping, how much you're consuming. So how much water each of your services are using. On paper, using the standard for doing water system planning, it was determined that without well 9 in operation, because it's your largest well, even if you were operating all of your available wells, you didn't have enough source capacity. And so as a result of that analysis, Department of Health looks at that and they say, clearly you need to have more wells. So when we were going through that analysis, that was our recommendation. You need more wells. However, you also have wells you're not operating at all. And so the concern being that it's a very expensive to drill and equip a new well. You know, whether that number is $2 million, $4 million. I mean, it can be a wide range. That being said, the rehabilitation of an existing well that's already been drilled is quite a bit less expensive to get a existing well up and running. And I wish I had the hindsight at the time to say, let's do more looking at well 6 before we move forward on a funding application. However, at that point, I believe actually at your previous meeting, there was a gentleman who used to work in Public Works who talked about that well 6 was a known issue, the fact that it had these water quality concerns. And so spending the money at that point.
He's
right there. Hey,
he's in the audience.
I appreciated your comments at that previous meeting. So yes, that being said, well 6 was not operated. And so it was determined to be the low hanging fruit. It was less expensive to rehab that well than it was to get that same capacity out of a completely new well.
Okay. And so you also made a comment and you said, you know, that you could apply for another grant this November, you said?
Yes.
Okay, this November. So if we were to apply for that grant money and we were to get everything, like green lights on everything, the whole project, by what year would we more likely get awarded that money?
So that's the answer to if you were to be able to apply for, I'm hearing well 10 a lot. So let's say something with well 10, you would apply this upcoming November and you would hear sometime next year and then you would start design.
Sometime next year.
One hold up to that though is to be eligible for that particular program, that project has to be listed in your water system plan. Right now, your previous water system plan does not identify a well 10 rehabilitation project.
Good Lord.
Water system plan.
Which is this big old binary box.
And it's not listed right now?
That was not a capital improvement that was considered at that.
Nowhere in there?
So we wouldn't even be able to.
This upcoming November, that project would not be available through that particular program.
So what projects would be available?
6? Not
Wait.
10.
There's
14.
drilling a new well, building a new reservoir,
14's
there's
already
some water
going,
line
right?
projects.
Is 14 already? that project's
14
already
is,
started?
well, yes, we have funding secured to drill a well for 14.
I see.
That is not going to, as Rob had mentioned, bringing a new well online is extremely expensive because you have the whole well house, all the controls and everything. That's enough to get you a well drilled. And then we're going to have to secure additional funding for the actual, full well house, and all the operational SCADA system and everything
So
too.
this is why they listed on our inventory as the well field,
Mhm.
because it hasn't progressed enough to be
So
an asset.
coming from Grandview, I did start a new well. We did get the funding for a new well to get drilled over at Country Park. Now, to have that whole well done, it did come out to about almost $5 million to have it completely done. It is going to take about 5 years by the time that gets done. So it's not a short process to get it done. We need to drill it, test it, and then the construction.
Can you touch on the fact that they require you to have a certain amount of water available for the building that's going on? Because those needs are coming up, and that's one of the alarms that went off and said, we need to get more water coming in here because of all these new
developments that are coming up on us.
Developments.
Yeah. So our ERUs are low. And that's why when I took it upon myself with Mr. Garza and Mr. Morales to meet with and Mr. Cervantes from the Department of Health, he stated that we need storage for fire protection. Plus a new well, something that should have been done, taken care of a long time ago. And that's why I've been working hard to make sure that we are able to find funding for this new well and the storage. Because we can add the new well, but if we don't have a place to store it, we're going to be behind the wall again. And we don't want that. We want to make sure that we're able to help the fire department turn down a firehouse. a house fire. We want to make sure that we're able to not contaminate our water into our reservoirs if something goes down. Obviously, we did have a low pressure of reservoir not too long ago. We did not go to zero. We did not get back siphonage back in, but we did get low. You know, and that's where the SCADA comes into play. No alarms went off. That's one of them that doesn't have an alarm. Had we had the alarm, we could have kicked that on and helped us out. So there's a lot of bricks, obviously, to be played here that we are looking at. It's not just well 6 that we're looking at. We're looking at the whole water system, not just one particular area.
Counselor Sasati?
So, well, I have a question for both of you. Adam, if the loan was that total amount, hopefully less, can you do the math for me, what it would be yearly as the payback and monthly?
Yeah, it's about $25,000 to $30,000 a year, which amounts to $2,300 or around that monthly. But these loans you pay by year, not by month. Which again is backed by rates. So you would have to look at the total system. And I apologize, I don't have in front of me, or I didn't prepare to look at our total debt load right now. Because often what will happen is that loans will come off, and then that's a great time to put new loans on, or kind of in the next 2 or 3 years, there's this one dropping off. So that is something that I can work with Jessica on, just to have like a better understanding of what we're carrying right now, and kind of when those things are adjusting.
Those are scary words, debt load. Anyway, so I don't know who's going to answer. Right. Well 10 keeps bringing, there's the well 10, and then the new well that's going to be built 14. So is that the solution, to build a new well instead of fixing 10 and maybe 9?
So 9 is our biggest producing water right now. 14, once we get that going, we don't know how much water it's going to produce at this moment because we haven't even drilled.
Which one?
14 is the new one.
But we need it for sure.
But we need a new well for sure.
Absolutely.
So, and then we also need a reservoir. So that's a lot of that comes into play. And like I said, that's for the whole water system, which obviously, with ERUs, developments coming, are picking up. We got Ruiz, who's coming in, Catholic Charities, who's bringing in 112 homes. And that's just the first phase. It's not the second phase. It's not the third phase, which is going to bring in like 300 some. And then we have a possibility of a industry that's coming that's going to use a ton of water that, gets sucked out that way. So our water system is way behind the times. And that's.
Sorry, I said,
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I did not, it wasn't a question.
No. So that our water system is behind the times, and that's where I'm working hard enough to get us up to the times and be proactive and make sure that we don't have the problems that we've had in the past. Yeah. That's my concern and my safety for the residents. So like I haven't stated, but my water supervisor supports me and I support him, and we've been in talks many, many times. And that's what we're looking at. And we're working with HLA. And, like I've told everybody before, my office is open. We can have these conversations hours on hours in my office. And there's tons of information that between the both of us, we can give out, I apologize. I asked him not to show up because, he was off and I had HLA here. And like I said, I am more than happy to have a conversation with my water supervisor and anybody who wants to come in and talk about our water system.
Yeah, Counselor Vasquez, and then we'll start wrapping up. I
Yeah.
guess.
So, question for Adam. So let's say we do move forward with this project, and then come November, we apply for more grant money, and then the following year, we're notified if we receive it or not, and then we're entering into a whole other grant and loan. Would the city of Sunnyside, would we be able to afford to pay off two projects?
Doing it right away.
It's a hard, I can't say definitively one way or another, but I do want to go back to and say debt capacity, debt load, are scary terms, and I totally understand that feeling. And especially when we're looking, and we all understand our own personal budgets, and we understand that debt are these big decisions that we make that are locking us on to these big commitments in the future. And I always want to convey to governing bodies that I'm working with to kind of throw that out a little bit. That debt isn't necessarily bad, especially when we're talking about municipal infrastructure and municipal finance. Again, it goes back to what I was talking about a little bit ago. It's this term called intergenerational equity, which again is it's talking about it's not putting too much of an infrastructure burden on any one taxpayer or ratepayer, right? If we did a $1 million project and we said we're going to raise rates next year just to do this $1 million project, that's going to raise rates a ton. And then people today are going to be paying a lot for that project. All these infrastructure projects that we're talking about are projects that last for 20, 30, 40, 50 years even. And so when we extend the payment of these projects out through debt financing with the rates, with that total debt load that we're carrying in our water system, then it's the ratepayers who use that infrastructure year over year over year that are paying for the improvements. So it is important for us to know kind of where we're at right now, which is something that I'll work with Jessica on. But I do just want to, it is something that you do want to continually be active, whether or not we use these funds, you do want to keep applying and you do want to keep getting these different projects and things available. Because it is an ongoing maintenance cycle that you have to be aware of and you have to be managing.
Okay. And I asked just because I would like to know, the health and if we would be able to move forward with these two projects, just because in my head, I'm also trying to think, priority. Like if moving forward, like come November, and we do see that we can apply for grant money and this other project is going to be more of a priority than this, well 6, then I would much rather move forward with the future and upcoming project than to, throw so much money in this project. So I guess I would just really want to know those numbers and our health, that way to be able to just kind of have more of an idea of what direction we should be taking.
And just to clarify, an OpenGov, and Corey and I discovered it right now, not too long ago, that, we do have the water equity fee that we get paid during new services that come into our town. As of right now, that's zero. As you guys know, we have many developers that came in. Okay, so we are looking to see where that funding went and how we are going to regenerate it from there, because that money is to be used to repair wells, maintain our wells, and make sure that we're able to pay off, I use it as, I don't want to say leverage because it's not a good word, but help me out here. You're a math guy in finance. Yes, that. What the young lad said.
Okay.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
The purpose of equity fees is that growth pays for growth. And so if you need to drill a new well because you're putting in a Catholic Charities development of 300 houses, the money that you collect from those 300 houses is put in a fund and you use that to drill a new well that you need because you just sold 300 new connections. Your growth from those fees should pay for the projects necessary to support the growth of your city.
And their ongoing
That works.
fees also help cover the debt service on the loans for those type of projects too.
So we have been looking into that. We do have it for water, and we do have a water equity fee, and we have sewer equity fee. So we have been making sure that those go allocated to the right place and that we're able to start building those funds so we can, move for projects that need to be repaired, not only in the water department, but and the sewer.
Very quickly, before we wrap up, someone raised their hand. They do have institutional knowledge of the water department, and they're asking if they can comment. Is there any objection to Juan approaching the podium? Okay, go ahead and approach, and then we'll. Oh,
Not you.
well, oh, okay.
No, you can't.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead. We usually don't allow comment, and just for the record, we were gonna allow the what? Oh, there's a.
I'm not used to making comments, of course. But I'll be remiss to leave this meeting and not make a comment. We just been here for a good hour and a half. And I've been hearing so many comments from one particular budget, but then hearing these sidewalks, lights not going off. To me, it's a very simple process. I would just go to the experts that are in front of you, ask one question: can we use these funds elsewhere? And if they come back and say no, question resolved. Why are we going back and forth? Sidewalks. I know sidewalks are needed. Other items are needed. Lights not going off. What are the purpose of flashing lights? And I heard someone clarify, oh, that's another unit, another system. So in short, my concern is if we start looking at these funds, whether we can move them elsewhere. I also work with grants in my work, and some grants are earmarked for special projects, specific projects. When we start moving them around, that's when we get into audit exceptions. When we have auditors coming and finding us out of compliance. There's a big need. There's a big need, and that's what I've heard. I would start looking at the future. We lost a great opportunity when we had the American Relief Fund. And I wish you all were sitting where you are at that time and asking the same questions. Because that would have been the time, the funding, to take care of a lot of these issues. Again, you all are going to make decisions. I hope we make them with, good knowledge and not make assumptions and then try to rob Peter to pay Paul, because sometimes that doesn't work that way. Safety is an issue. My concern is if one of those students at that site gets hurt, would they come to the school district? Regardless if it's that little plot of land is owned by the city, patrons don't see it at, oh, who owns this? They go after anybody. So in short, when you make your decisions, I truly do think we need to look into it deeply. Look at, was this fund earmarked for that? Can we use it somewhere else? Simple question, go back and ask the grantee, can that be used elsewhere? And if so, then come back and continue this conversation. Where can we use those funds? Where is the priority? I think there's priority all over. And unfortunately, there's not enough funds to go around. And I do think we have all heard that the state is under budget deficit. So to assume that if we prolong this and put it back to another time, that money may not be available. In short, that's my thought. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Garza.
And I'd like to introduce, this is
Go
Lorenzo Garza, who is my water supervisor, who I stated before that we are open to having conversations with anybody.
Yeah, I had prior engagements. I was gonna come, but got caught up, so. But like Hector said, if you guys have any questions, comments, if you want to take a tour of the site, I know Dolan wants Diane to get out there, so we can take him to check it out and stuff, so.
Thank you. Go ahead, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Good evening, Council. My name is Juan Alvarez here from Sunnyside. I was actually a water systems operator for the city of Sunnyside for about 13 years. I believe I left in 21 or 22. So I can answer some of the questions that were asked about well number 6. So the reason it was just a seasonal well is because it produces nitrates and manganese, and it has traces of arsenic. That has been longstanding from before I even started at the city. A lot of these upgrades are being mentioned under safety, but previously that chlorine system, gas chlorine system was supposed to be taken out probably about a decade ago and replaced with the sodium hypochlorite solution that we generated from well number 11, which is the one right next to well number 10. That's not currently being used. One of the issues with well number 6 as well is that it pumps sand. And although we are on a grid system, because the sand travels at a rate of speed, the further it gets away from the system and where the water is being consumed more, is where the sand eventually lands. So if you're on the receiving end as a customer, you're not happy about that. The wells were cycled throughout the year, like Hector mentioned, so they can regenerate. Well 9 being our largest producer was usually put offline around the winter time. Someone made a statement that if well 9 went down, we could not keep up with the water demand. As when I left a few years before that, we had actually repaired well number 9 and we did fine. That was one of the times that we turned on well number 6. So something must have happened between the 4 or 5 years that I've been gone that well number 6 stopped being used, and there was an issue with well number 7. Because while I was here, well number 7 had all new telemetry put in. And currently, I believe for this project for well number 6, you guys are asking for an AC unit. Currently, only one well number 13, 12 or 13 has an AC unit. Everything else is just an industrial heater or doors that open up to let air free flow, and there's an industrial fan to keep the motor cool down. That's just how most of the cities are, most well houses. One of the other things about well number 6 is the proximity of well number 6 to the school district during games. Now that the football field has been moved, but there's still soccer tournaments that happen there, is the potential exposure to a chlorine gas leak. So one of the state requirements before was we can only have one chlorine cylinder at a time there. Because if there were to be a leak, you would have to evacuate several city blocks. And I believe our fire department has the SCBA's to go in and turn it off, but I'm not 100% sure. They do? Okay. So yeah, those are the information that I can give you guys. Like I said, the manganese, the high nitrates, and the traces of arsenic, for me, are a big concern because that is what affects the quality of the water. So this not being a project to rehabilitate the well itself, other than just the building and the telemetry, I just don't see it as currently as a good way to spend taxpayer dollars, regardless if it's spread out over 10, 15, or 20 years, because there's other projects coming on. We have a fire station potentially. We have a lot of things. At the end of the day, the taxpayer, the consumer, is the one that's going to pay that. So you add here, you add there, eventually you're going to have to raise your rates regardless.
And Juan, I got a report from, I think it's the same one you got, of Sunnyside wells, and there was no problems found now. It's like you said, things change, but they did the study on the well and it's not, they didn't have any findings on that. And so now the focus is, like you said, the focus changed. And so that's why I was asking that question.
And just to let you guys know, we did have hypochlorite. What happened is the system is no longer working. So that's why the tank broke. We just don't use it anymore. That's why it got turned over to gas. So yes, we did have at one time a hypochlorite system, but it is no longer active. It hasn't been active for quite some time.
Are the ultraviolet systems not adequate for the amount of water?
That would be the sewer.
So the hypochlorite generation system was, it used a salt brine and extracted the chlorine. That is used for disinfecting distribution systems. The UV light is used for wastewater effluent.
So that's over in the headworks and the sewer department. But yeah. So
another thing
That was
too-
used on water
sorry
too.
to
We
cut
did.
you off.
Okay.
So the hypochlorite system was messed up when we came. I know when Juan was there, we were using hypochlorite. So another reason they decided to get rid of hypochlorite too was because it's hazardous material. We were hauling that with a 60,000 gallon tank to well 12 and 13. Come to find out, if you do that, you got to have a hazmat. You can't do that across town. So when we were doing it, it wasn't legal. Washington State Patrol told us that you guys cannot be doing that. You guys need to have a hazmat when you're hauling hypo across town like that, regardless if it's in town or wherever you go. So that's something that when Daniel was here, he found out. So the other thing with hypochlorite too is it's expensive to maintain. And the other problem that we had is we relied on one person, and I don't want to remember him, the guy, he used to show up in a Toyota Camry to do maintenance on our system. One guy went across the whole state, the whole country, so we would have to wait for him to come and fix the system. That's the other thing that we had a problem with, that is we were waiting on one person to come fix the system to get our hypochlorite machine to work to haul hypo out there, which was illegal. So that's why we strayed away from the hypo thing. Well 6, the tank thing, there is one tank still there. There is an emergency shutoff there, but the problem we have with that is when you have a chlorine leak, the exhaust fan turns on. That exhaust fan turns the chlorine gas out into atmospheric air. There's a football stadium or arena right by there. So if it happens at night and all that fume pushes over to those people, what are we gonna do? It's there, it's a hazard. Yes, we know we're not supposed to have it there, but I think that's why we're trying to get this grant, just to upgrade that stuff and make it safe. Even if we just do the chlorine room to make it safe. I know I'm a father now. I know if my son or daughter was walking by there and they get hit with chlorine gas and they fall down and pass out and potentially pass away, I'm gonna be a mad parent. And that's what we're trying to steer away from is there. Another one, well 9, it's turning on every day. It runs all week. We turn off well 6 when we had that snafu out there with the flushing thing. It's turning on and off every day on its own. Well 6 hasn't been on. I do know when they took the test, well 6 had to run for a month straight. I do remember when they were doing that, they did tell city council at the time, I don't know if all you guys were up there, that you are gonna get dirty water. But like Hector said, the water did get tested and it came back great, like Dolan said. So a lot of things changed. Well 7, it does run. But the problem with well 7, and Juan can attest, is that when it turns on, it pumps out a lot of iron right now. So we have to turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, run to waste. The problem with well 7 is when we do that, Yakima Chief is on the end of that line. So they're obviously using a lot of water. So they call us and say, hey, we're getting a bunch of red water. They have very expensive filters out there. So that's why we tend to use that only in case of emergencies.
And also, and with that being said, our town is growing. So back 22, 23, our town wasn't as big as it is now. We're developing industrial-wise and residential-wise. So we're growing as a town, which we've all wanted. We want to make our town just as big and just as better. So that's why I believe it's useful to have a well 6.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think any of us are saying that wells are not important, because wells are important, and we need to drill into the aquifers to get some water, and water is life, and we all need water to survive. I think the common sentiment, and correct me if I'm wrong, is prioritization and sense of urgency, and especially if we're applying for monies and making sure that we are being responsible where we're putting the money and where it's going to. So I don't think none of us are saying that wells are not important, water is not important. We know it's important. And because it's important, and because this project had nothing to do with water, it's just the reason why I continue asking a ton of questions. And so I know that, I don't know, there's still another question, and then we can go ahead and because we do want to figure out what's happening next. And I don't think we've gotten to that point yet. We're not going to vote today because there's no voting today, but we do need to give Mr. Haley some direction.
Thank you for hearing me out.
Yeah, thank you.
So, after your comment, about like the safety around and how what were you saying again about how
Skid.
there's
Oh, the chlorine?
yeah, the chlorine was
Chlorine-
it?
So the chlorine gas system there, it
Chlorine
does
gas
show
system?
off. So there's one there, it gets tested every year. When TMG comes, they do maintenance on it. It does shut down the tank. If there's a chlorine leak there, it shuts down the tank. But the exhaust fan in there, if there's a potential leak or that when there is a leak, it throws the chlorine gas out of the room so someone can walk in there. But that chlorine gas that gets thrown out of the room goes to the atmosphere, and it's that close to the school.
And you stated that there has been leaks, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's always leaks.
There's always a possibility.
Not always, but they shut down. There's always a possibility of there to be a leak there.
Very quick question with these science words being thrown out. So there's, remind me of that.
Chlorine gas system.
Chlorine gas.
Okay, so years back, I don't think none of us were on council yet, but there was supposed to be some conversion to hypo, which you just talked about. Did that ever happen, especially because it's so close to a high school?
So that's the reason we stopped using the hypo, because number one, we are not able to travel it. We do not have our hazmat. Number two, like Lorenzo was saying, is we're waiting on a guy year round to come back. If the hypo goes down, we're going to be waiting for a long time, and then we're not disinfecting our water. That's why we moved to chlorine gas. Number three, if we get caught with transferring that hypo, hazardous material through town, WSP can really come down on us without us having an endorsement in hazmat, having the correct truck, having the correct way to travel with it. There's a lot of other stuff that will be going on that would need to be done for us to use hypo again.
And I do know that they deliver hypo now too. So if we call Oxark, they can deliver it for us. But that system right now is not set up for hypo.
And all
And I
our
do
schools
know
have changed.
that we do have the system there, but it's really expensive to maintain that system.
So just really quick, so chlorine gas is 2.5 times heavier than air. That is why the exhaust at every chlorine room exhaust to the outside, to the bottom. Every chlorine room is like that. So regardless if it's well number 6 at the high school, well number 9 at the airport, well number 7 by Independence, or the well number 8 by the police department, they all exhaust to the outside on the bottom because that is where the gas will go. So even with an updated chlorine room at well number 6, if there is a leak, it will exhaust to the outside. There is no going away from that. Which was the reason why chlorine gas was supposed to be eliminated from well number 6 because of the proximity to the school and school events. Why that never happened, I mean, that was above my pay grade at that time.
Yeah, because, being told that, now I'm worried and I'm concerned because then that even leaves us at a potential, like we could get sued if an accident were to happen. So that's just something that I would want, for us to figure out as a council.
So what's the direction you all want to give Mr. Haley now? Hearing, do we proceed? Do y'all want to bring this back to the table? I mean, we can keep going on and on throughout the night.
If I could make a suggestion based on my operating experience, is that they make small hypo-generating cells. The wastewater treatment plant had one, and at one point, we were going to move the one from the wastewater treatment facility to that well. But unfortunately, because our Severn Trent system at well number 11 needed parts, we ended up scabbing parts off of it over the years, and it wasn't functioning anymore. But it was like 1/8 the size of the current one that's at well number 11. So my recommendation would be, if this money is available, if all you can do is remove the chlorine gas from that well, that would be a big win for the city. And the well can still be used on a seasonal basis or emergency if needed.
So to kind of piggyback off of what Juan said is, So I know Dan, when Dan was here, he did look into taking the system from the wastewater over to well 6, and they told him it was too small of a system to put in at well 6. He would have to buy a bigger system. So I know they did look into that when Daniel was here, and they told him that that system at the sewer plant right now was too small of a system for well 6.
And then we would also have to use more money to convert everything over to hypo, which is not going to be cheap.
Okay.
So
So what is the direction? What do we want to do?
I'm thinking we still need to table this.
yeah, I don't think we are like ready for like to just give direction.
Just to give direction.
I don't think we're ready for direction. I think we need to table
Just-
this.
Just, I don't know, well, I'm hearing a lot of pushback from the vote.
I
Is
think
there-
my comment is,
Just ask.
I just think that we've talked a lot about the cosmetic stuff, and now he came in and then Juan made a comment that I think if we're going to use money, it should be to focus on what Juan and Lorenzo discussed.
So now I have a question for HLA, so would we be able to add this piece, the removal of the chlorine of this well number 6, would we be able to add this part in order to move this forward?
To do what specifically? To remove gas and put in a different chlorination technology?
Would we be able to do that with the money?
I would think that would be allowable. We would have to talk to the Department of Health about amending scope again to change something to accommodate that. Because that has not been discussed up until now.
Okay.
But it's at the same well, so I think that's a much better chance than trying to use it on a totally different well.
Okay, so I would want to know if we could do that, move forward with that, and then Adam, if you could just update us with the health to move forward with 2 projects.
Those are good action items. Anybody else? No, thank you all. Look, it's, again, I'll speak for myself. I'm not a subject matter expert on this. Still, year 2.5 into this, I still consider myself kind of new into understanding a lot of the waterworks, and public works in general. And public works is a very important department, and probably one of the most important departments, that runs the city. So I'm just really appreciative of everybody who's chimed in. We don't necessarily allow people to approach the podium during a working session, but I know that we all are eager to learn a little bit more and get a little bit more advice. What we don't have as much in the city hall is people with institutional knowledge. And so anytime that we can lean on someone that understands what happened before we've all come to council, is really, it's very, very helpful. So with that being said, is there any other comments, concerns, questions to address HLA? Mr. Mejia, Adam?
So just to let everybody know, I do have 28 years on the water system that I've been working with. I know I don't have 28 years here. Oh, sorry. 28 years, but I do have 2 years here, and I have been working close with the water department. So I do have knowledge, and I'm willing to sit down with anybody and explain, how the water works and how we can work hard together to make it that much better. So, we do have knowledge. I don't want you guys to think that we don't. We do have knowledge.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking on anybody's competency, but when Sunnyside is a very unique situation, there's been a lot of turnover in management, a lot of turnover even in the director position of Public Works. So, with a lot of turnover comes a lot of loss of information within Sunnyside. So, go ahead, I'll give you the mic. And
Just had one other thing, not necessarily related to water, but I did bring Marla Meza along with me today. She is a rising young star engineer in our office, and she is going to be your lead point engineer in Stephanie's role. And I'll let Marla talk a little bit about Stephanie used to occupy. And so,
oh, okay. Oh, nice. Welcome.
So-
Nice to meet you.
funding,
Member Stephanie.
transportation, and she's actually worked for about a year with Adam, and as recently was working on some of his water problems.
It's great. You're lucky.
Marla, why don't you give us a little bio on your background, your credentials, cities that you work with. This is not an interview, but this is the resources that the city is taking a look at as far as personnel.
No, well, good evening, council, mayor. I appreciate the
evening.
opportunity for this. And honestly, I appreciate the ongoing conversation about this and just seeing your guys' concern and the priority with your guys' city it's really important to see. So I'm originally from the Yakima Valley. I was born and raised in Yakima. I went to the University of Washington, where I studied civil engineering. I know, Pat, sorry. Most of our offices from the university or the Washington State University. But I've been with HLA next week, it'll be 6 years that I've been at HLA. So I'm one of the licensed professional engineers at HLA. And I'm really looking forward to the opportunity of working in Sunnyside. I've been working just throughout the Lower Valley, Grandview, recently with Toppenish, and most of my time has been spent in Natchez, Union Gap, Pasco, and just any of the other municipalities that we help out.
Okay.
And so you have a civil engineering degree and a PE in transportation, is that what I understand?
So my PE is actually in water resources, but I mostly just work on transportation projects.
So, and I've worked with Marla in Grammy for 2 years. We worked together for 2 years, and she's a great person to have on a part of our team. I'm excited to have her and will help us grow. So I'm very excited to have her.
And Adam, is this the same for you in Toppenish?
Yeah, Marla's great. You're lucky.
HLA's everywhere. Yeah. Very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. And if there's no objection or further commentary from the council, I will go ahead and adjourn this at 8:09 p.m. Making sure there's no objection, commentary. Okay, thank you everybody for being with us here tonight this evening.
Thank you all.
I'm glad he showed up and yeah, because I think that's a bigger priority.
I know. Right after you
It's a
talked, I
bigger
was like,
priority,
oh,
yeah.
I need to bring it.
Okay,